So I think the biggest problem now at an industry level with digital PR is that a lot of agencies, also at the expectation level, a lot of brands are doing kind of links by numbers in terms of how they see success of a campaign, how they see results. By that, I mean kind of looking at domain authority, looking at, we need 10 links a month for this to be a successful digital PR campaign. It's all very kind of like SEO metric based, which kind of makes sense, right? Because we work in SEO. It's the language that we are used to. However, my biggest problem with that is that it works in the midterm, but it massively falls off short term and long term too. It falls off short term because when you incentivize an agency, or where that agency's kind of strong point is just getting high metric links no matter what, you end up with a lot of irrelevant links. So if I sell trainers and my agency is getting me loads of DA60 plus or whatever links from water gun forums and stuff like that, like, yeah, on paper it looks good, and we know from the past of Google it might even have a short-term effect. Like, we might see our visibility increase. There's no customers on the water gun site, or the chances of them being there are maybe quite low. I don't know, maybe there's a connection there of water guns and trainers that I'm not seeing. But the chances of your actual customers being on that website where you've got this metrically nice looking link are a lot lower than if you got your DA60 link, for example, from a, I don't know, trainer like fan site or something like that. These reseller sites where they sell like Yeezys for, we can't say Yeezys anymore, can we? It's been cancelled. These trainer reseller sites where they sell like secondhand trainers for absolutely tons of cash. Your audience exists there. Like, we can say that with an almost certainty. So the chances of you succeeding are way better. That kind of links by numbers thing doesn't work in the long term either. We know Google's principles of like how to do marketing good have not really changed since its inception. The only thing that has changed is Google's ability to enforce its vision of a perfect internet. So if we're going to accept that Google is at least going to be a large part of search marketing and digital marketing for the foreseeable, we know, we saw it with spam links, we saw it with spam content and keyword spinning, that there's going to become a point in time where the algorithm says, yeah, I'm not into this anymore. I'm going to discount it. I'm going to punish it in some way. I'm not having it, basically. So in the long term, it doesn't work either. So you've got that kind of midterm, irrelevant, nice looking metrics work where they'll increase your visibility maybe momentarily. But for us, we want to, as a whole agency, work with clients and get to a point where we give them results beyond our agency tenure. However long we work with them, we want to come away and we want to be able to give lasting results to that client. Outside of the SEO value even, we know if we're going after links where your audience exists or might exist, then that immediate value is increased because the potential of someone either clicking the link or immediately kind of getting interested in your brand and going searching for it is much higher. It doesn't have to be a huge domain authority. It can be, in terms of SEO metrics, it could be a little bit lower, but we know that has immediate value. We also know, because of Google's principles of kind of how we should be doing marketing, that in the long term, it's a much safer strategy. There's always a lot of risk associated with building links or getting links, however you want to refer to it, because even at a production level, it's a risk management game, which we've talked about before. Do you go in heavy at the start? It might fail. Or do you go in light and often? It's a choice. There's no real right answer. But generally, this whole practice, and arguably, all of marketing, right, is a risk management game. Like, where I've got a certain amount of cash that I'm willing to spend, where can I put it? We think the best answer is not worrying so much about the metrics of a website, but just going, where do my customers exist? I want to appear there. You can do that through ads. You can do that through digital PR. You're not paying to get the content on there is the difference between ads, but it's slightly more uncertain. So we recognize relevance is a really important thing. In terms of actually doing campaigns, what do our campaigns look like? So we tend to split the difference 50-50 really of the type of activity we're doing. The first part is what we and some others call reactive PR. So reactive PR is really trying to flatten the risk out by doing little and often touches to as many people as possible. So take your brand and all the kind of topics surrounding it. We're on the lookout through media monitoring, through looking at Twitter and various social platforms, kind of what people are talking about, what journalists need stats or comments or content around. We're constantly, daily spending hours looking for those opportunities. And with the clients that we do that with, we're kind of emphasizing speed and just talking to them all the time and going, can we get a quote out within the next hour about this thing that someone's talking about over there? So that's the reactive side. It's really quick. Probably the halo effect of those links is quite small. Generally, it's like landed and done, but it's quite low input as well. So we know we can hit 20, 30 reactive opportunities in a month. And yeah, even if we don't hit half of them, we're still getting 15 bits of coverage on sites that we know are really relevant to your audience or relevant to you as a brand. So that's the first one. Generally, with a few exceptions, we tend to have everyone on the reactive side of things, just because, the other stuff, the campaigns can generally be like higher in budget. That is a kind of leveler. Like, we know we can have it ticking over. We know we can be getting coverage, people talking about you, inserting maybe a little bit of your own story to put a spin on that. We know it's a kind of consistent practice where we lower the risk through essentially the amount of effort that we're putting into each individual instance. The other side is probably the one that everyone's more familiar with, which is the bigger kind of data-led campaigns, visual, like cool looking stuff. This has been a staple of digital PR content marketing for years. I'd say it's become a little bit more complicated now. So if we look back in 2015, 2016, the kind of golden age of the infographic, that was all everyone was doing. And it got to a point probably not far after, maybe 2018, 2019, where there was an infographic on something absolutely everywhere and the market just became super saturated with the same stuff. If it wasn't infographics, it was an interactive map. It was, I can't think of any more examples, but there was a pattern to the type of content that we were seeing, and people just got bored of it. It wasn't interesting anymore. If you're sending to a newspaper or whoever, we've got another infographic on why you can't sleep at night, jog on, no one cares kind of thing. So we still do that. Where we're at now is trying to think much more originally about form. So we're not just leaning on different infographics. We've got to take the idea first rather than the format, make something that is genuinely interesting, make something that's cool, amazing to look at, whatever it is, and use that kind of the idea as the central point, and then thinking about what form it needs to take after. So whether that's new like products that we're creating based on a trend that's like interesting or a little bit quirky or whatever, whether it's videos, whether it's huge data studies, they thankfully do still exist. Data is always going to be interesting. That's your kind of bigger campaign stuff we would do alongside the reactive, with the idea that we've got steadily ticking over bits of coverage from the reactive PR, and then we do the kind of big hit stuff with the campaigns, but always making sure it's idea-led and not form-led, and making sure that it's suitable to the right audience. We're not just doing it because it's popular at the time. We still want to be sending it to the places that you have an affinity with as a brand. In terms of like the creative approach for that, I'd say there's no one size fits all, and we do all of them, and we do several of them in tandem at various different points. Come at it from a really heavily data-led point of view. As an agency, we absolutely love data, so we can look at heavily search for like questions or terms or events or things that have happened. We can use that, and with a bit of creativity, find like a cool visual or kind of technical asset that we can use alongside it. The data tends to, again, with a few exceptions, the data tends to fall down if we're talking really quick kind of trend stuff, because you don't have comparative to, like Google keyword tool, don't get that for something that's happened 10 minutes ago. Like, it just isn't there. So there's other methods we can use, typically leaning more on kind of social and seeing what people are talking about, that kind of thing. A massive indicator of success for a lot of that bigger stuff is, again, just how quickly you can get it out. It's all well and good having this big campaign that's got loads of data for a trend that happened 12 months ago, but it isn't going to work if you've got to go through months of sign off in-house to get something through. You are losing time, you are losing efficiency and your ability to kind of make the best out of that situation. I would say another real good advantage of the reactive stuff now, I've always had a slight problem when people say that like PR is about relationships, like the PRs and the journalists are just like twinned up together and they're going for coffees every week. Like, we know that's not really how it works. However, can't deny that if you're an editor at a ragtop newspaper and you're responsible for the health section and you're consistently putting out requests for data or quotes and something like that, and you've consistently got one brand that works in your space that is always giving you the stuff that you need as fast as possible, it's always really accurate, always really comprehensive what they're giving you, you are going to trust those guys a lot more. You're going to eventually get to a point where you might just send them an email and go, hey, can you give us something on this? The people that are really getting hold of reactive PR as a thing, as a model, the people that are doing that now are kind of getting ahead of the race a little bit in that they're in those positions. You know, there's only so many journalists, only so many editors for so many different topics. Like the ones who are ahead of the curve now are the ones getting in there with those journalists. How do I say it without saying making relationships? They're the ones getting in there and just being as useful as possible. Yeah, basically the ones getting in there first, they're just the ones that are known by those journalists first. There's nothing bad that can come from that. There's plenty, not dead cert, but there are things. You're going to find it harder to catch up to those guys when you eventually come around to this kind of method. So it makes sense to